All right, everybody. My name is Andrew Wray. I'm performing with Jazz in June this year. And today I wanted to give you just a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look on my Ableton Live setup, how I go about live looping, how I go about coming up with melodies, the hardware specifics, some of the music tips and tricks that can get you going. So I'm very happy to be a part of it this year. And without further ado, let's get started. So here you can see our Ableton Live screen. This is my looping setup that I have set up. You can see it's sort of laid out like a mixing board. So we've got several different channels here that I've all named accordingly. We've got drums, bass, keys, soft pad, saw pad, pluck, lead, and an extra audio track for resampling. I've got two effects tracks here as well. This one is a bit crusher, and this one is a reverb. And then here we have our master track as well. So let's talk about how Ableton is laid out. We've got the mixing board there, like I said. Over here, if we click this little button, it's going to bring up our navigation. So this is where we're going to find all of our sounds. This is where we're going to find all of our effects, as well as any other files that we're working with inside of the project. So you can see we have a couple different categories here. We've got sounds, and Ableton has lots of great built-in sounds, drums, instruments, synthesizers, audio effects, MIDI effects, Max for Live, plugins, clips, and samples. So the main ones of those that I use are sounds, drums, audio effects, MIDI effects. You can use any third-party plugins, any software synthesizers that you like. I use this really great one called Massive. I already have loaded up several instances of it here in this set. So that's really great. You can use any sounds that you already have that are software sounds. So anytime we're going to grab a new drum sound, a new synthesizer, grab an effect, that's where that's going to be. And you can click that on and off right here. Here at the top, we have our transport bar. And this is where all of our master controls are going to be. Like tempo is right here, our time signature, the metronome, turning that on and off, our launch length, I'll talk about that a bit later, our timestamp, play, stop, record, a couple other buttons here that we'll get into, and a couple other here that we'll get into as well. So let's talk about the gear that you'll need. Obviously, you'll need a computer to run Ableton on. I've got a MIDI keyboard set up here that is plugged in, and if I turn that onto a piano, you can hear I've got some nice piano sounds going. I've got an electric piano set up right now. So that's really nice, obviously, to make it easier to input melodies and chord progressions that you think of, as well as just making it a more streamlined experience. Next, I've got this Launchpad controller, which is a grid controller that I have set up here. So this is called the Launchpad X, and it's built by Novation, and it's actually designed specifically to be used with Ableton. So it works very well. It's seamless integration. So here in our session view, we can see here that I've got track 3 enabled, which is our piano sound. And so that's why this is lit up like that. Session view is great for building loops and building things on top of each other. So if I turn the metronome on, there it is, and I'll get a tempo. Let's do like, so that's going. And then in session mode on the Launchpad, we can start and record clips just using these buttons here. And you can see it started right on a downbeat and it ended right on a downbeat. And then if we want to stop it, we can just do that. So that's really cool. That's part of what makes Ableton different from other digital audio workstations. So that's that. Let's talk about the rest of the Launchpad. We've got session mode right there. We've got a note mode right here, which is really interesting. You can set up different scales to play. I don't use this a lot because I'm more used to the piano. But this does come in really handy when we're playing drum sounds. So there's a grid right here that automatically shows up when we have a drum track selected. So that's really cool. I really like that. This drum set has 16 sounds available to it right now. Let's talk about getting around our session with the Launchpad. If we hit this here, we can arm different tracks to record enable. So that first track was a drum track. We have a bass track, that piano track, and then a couple synthesizers. Another synthesizer. And some effects that are set up. A couple of pluck sounds. A lead synthesizer sound. And that audio track that I talked about. Let's talk about mapping effects to controls. So let's just add a new effect on here for fun. Let's go over here to that side panel again. Audio effects is here, and let's grab a phaser. Now to put it on the master track, we can either select the master and then double click this, or we can just drag and drop it, which I like to do. Okay? So we can hear that effect is here. I can move it with my mouse. It's obviously more fun and more productive to have that assigned to one of the knobs on your keyboard. So let's talk about how to do that. I would like to automate the frequency here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command M, and then I'll select which parameter I want to automate, in this case frequency. I'll just click that, and then I'll move whatever knob I want to be assigned to that. So I'll just pick this 8th knob here. That is there. Now if I go back out of mapping mode by hitting Command M again, it'll take over, and then that is there. Now, you can hear I had a couple of other things set up already, a couple of other effects that I was using, which were on this channel, I believe. Yeah. So on that guy, I've got a filter. Let's select it so we can take a look. A filter, which just goes up and down with that knob, and then this auto pan effect, which is controlled by this knob here. It controls the speed of it, which is fun. So that's the basic layout. And the cool thing about that is that you can basically build your own instrument, even though, you know, I have 8 faders and 8 knobs here, and 8 drum pads. There's a lot of different combinations that we could do with those. So I have those effects set up to do that. One other thing I have going here is, in order to get a diversity of sounds while I'm doing live looping, because it's nice to have, you know, multiple drum kits, multiple keyboard sounds, multiple bass sounds, etc. And I'd like to show you a really easy way to sort of streamline that and condense it down. So you can see, let's take the bass track for example. That's a bass sound right here. What I've done is I've basically assigned these faders to be able to change sounds for me. So if I move all the way to the top here, it's a super aggressive bass sound. If I move a quarter of the way down, different sound, halfway down, different sound, and all the way down is that sub sound. So let me show you how to do that. Let's open up a new MIDI track here. And what we're going to do here is drag an instrument rack onto that track. And what the instrument rack lets you do is basically have multiple instruments on one channel. So I'm just going to pick a couple of built-in sounds here. Let's maybe go for some percussion sounds. Actually, let's do some guitars. Okay. I'll just pick 2 or 3 that I like here. That one's cool. Maybe that one. So those are all 3 in there now. Now, if I play the keyboard, they're all 3 going to sound at the same time, which you might want, but it's nice to have control over that to not do that. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do here is in the instrument rack, we're going to click chain, and then basically these show you the range of MIDI values that each instrument will be triggered by. So since we have 3, we'll spread them out roughly evenly in thirds. So we'll go about 42 here. We'll drag this one over to go from 43 to maybe 85. And then we'll do this one last. Now this selector up here determines which one of these is being played. So you can see if I just play one note and move across, it changes which sound is being played. Now, all we have to do is map that chain selector to a fader. So I'll do that right now. We'll go back into mapping mode with Command M. We'll click on that, and I'll pick this one right here. Go back out of mapping mode. You can see that that is working. Okay, so that's a really easy way to, instead of having like 3 bass channels, 3 drum channels, 3 keys channels, it's a really great way to consolidate things and make your set more easy to navigate. All right, for the second half of this video, I think it would be fun to just build a song together. We'll talk about arrangement mode. We'll talk about just some basic musical things to get you started. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to start with piano. And I'll just find a good chord progression that I like. Yeah. And you can see I've also mapped the tap tempo and the metronome on and off here to this first custom mode that I've set up. I've got a couple custom modes that I've set up. And again, that's what's great about this, is that you basically get to build your own instrument digitally, which is really cool. So I'm feeling sort of a shuffle kind of vibe. So I want to get some electric keys, which I already have set up. So I'm going to go back to session mode here. All right, I think I found a progression here that I like. So I'm going to go ahead and record it. Here we go. See, that starts right back over, which is really nice. So let's build some more ingredients on top of this. I think a bass line would be really great. So I'm going to enable that. Let's find one of my bass sounds that I like. Let's go with that one, I guess. Let's record a bass line. there now. Rocking along. All right, cool. Let's talk about working with arrangement mode. So if I hit tab, that's going to take us to arrangement mode. And if you've used other audio workstations like GarageBand, Logic, Pro Tools, this is more what you're used to, maybe a linear view. So we've got our time down here on the bottom and our tracks stacked vertically. So we can really easily record this information into arrangement view to start planning out a full-length song. So I'm going to hit stop here, and then I think we'll just want to start with our keys riff here. Yeah, so I'm going to hit stop here to take the cursor back to the very beginning. And then I'm just going to hit record here, and it'll start bringing this clip into arrangement view. You can see that's recording there. And then let's say we want to bring in the bass now. I'll hit play on that. You can see that's recording along as well there. And then let's bring in the drums. And I'll stop everything right here. I'll stop right on the downbeat. Sweet. All right. Let's talk about another important concept, which is automation. Automation lets you record parameter changes over time, which is really cool. So I'm going to bring a filter in to this keys track here, and I'm going to make it a high-pass filter. So if I just play the keys by themselves, you can see that's isolating those higher frequencies. And let's map this to a knob. So I'll hit frequency here, Command M. I will choose this knob. Cool. And then if we hit A here, we can see these red lines. You can see when I move this knob, the effect is moving, but this red line is moving as well. So I'd like to have the song start at this high pass and then slowly work down as the bass comes in and as the drums come in. So we are going to enable this guy. Oh, we need to hit record as well. And you can see it's recording my automation. So I'm going to slowly move that down. So you can see right here that recorded all of those changes that I made with the knob to the effects, which is really handy. All right, so we got that automation recorded. That is right there. Let's try and add a new section to our song now. So right now we've got this, shuffly thing going on. right, so there we're ending on that D minor chord with a C sharp and a B in it. So a D minor 13, major 7, something like that. So it might be cool to go down to regular D minor for this next B section. So I'm going to add a little marker up here. I'm going to right click right here and add locator and just write B section. All right, I found a progression here that I like. So I'm going to record it. Let's talk about these buttons right here. These allow you to loop sections of the arrangement if you're working on them. So if I hit that clip and I hit Command L, let's make it shorter, that will loop that section of the arrangement. Okay. So that's useful if you're tweaking synthesizer effects, parameters, and you just need to hear the same thing over and over. These guys will let you punch in and punch out, so this is really useful as well. I'm going to move the beginning here to right where I want to start recording, and then I'm going to hit punch in. Now if I press play right here and hit record, you can see it's not recording right now, but as soon as it crosses that threshold, it starts recording. All right, let's get that new keys part recorded. All right. To crop that over here, I'm going to click right here and hit Command E to split that and just delete that extra little chunk here. To add some more contrast here, I think it would be fun to add some triplets in the bass, or sorry, some triplets in the drums. So yeah, something like that. So I'm going to record that here. All right. And as I'm hearing this, I think I might want to switch up my drum sound. Let me see what this sounds like with some other sounds. I have that chain selector mapped here as well. Kind of like that one. Nice, very cool. Let's add this keyboard part on top now. Very cool. Let's add some bass to this as well. Cool. Now, I think it would be good to add some reverb here, just on everything, but especially on the clap of the snare drum, which would be really cool. So, over here is that clap sound that we have. I'm going to open up our side panel here, I'm going to grab a reverb, and I'm going to drag and drop that just onto the clap. Now, I want this to be a really long decaying reverb. So I'm going to set this decay time here to like 5 seconds maybe. I don't want this on at the beginning of the track. So this is another case where we can use automation. I'm going to hit this decay time. Actually, I just want the reverb to be completely off for the rest of the time. So I'm going to hit this off button, and you can see when I do that, that changes up here when I hit different parameters, stereo image, density, that's all there. So we just are going to mess with the device on and off. So on this A section, we definitely want it off. So I'm going to drag that down to off and then delete that dot to make it go off, and then it'll come on right when the right when that B section starts. So let's take a listen to that. All right, that's definitely working. Might be a bit too much reverb. I'll turn that down a little bit. I'll turn the dry wet down, and I don't want that high cut. I want it to be more of a high-end reverb. Let's take a listen to that again with just the drums. Yeah, that sounds really cool. I like that. Very cool. So I have an idea for an effect that would be really cool. We're going to perform with both musical content and MIDI content here. So I'm thinking of sort of a fake sidechain sort of effect. So let's get that going. Cool. I don't know if I like that together with everything else, so we might make that a separate third section. So let's move that over here. And we'll create another locator here. We'll call that C section. All right, very cool. Let's put all of these tracks in a group together. This is useful for controlling the volume of several tracks together at the same time. So I'm going to hit this track here. I'm going to shift click again here. I'll right click, and then we'll group our tracks together. All right, now you can see we have a group that's collapsible that has all those tracks in it. And whenever the solo starts, I just want the volume of this to go down because that makes sense musically. We want to make room for the solo voice. So not that much. We're at 0 dB, so maybe only like 3 dB down or something like that. I want to take that idea we had with the automating the filter, and we'll turn that into our C section here. All right, let's get this recorded. All right, very cool. Let's crop that up again with Command E. Now here I'd like some sub bass, which is a sound that I have available. It's not the sound that we had before though. So we're going to automate the chain selector to start at this fuzzy bass sound that we had at the beginning. There it is. So we'll have it be right there for the beginning, and then the sub is all the way at value 1. So you can see if I'm in this section of the song, it plays that sound. If I'm here, it plays that sound, which is really cool. So yeah, let's get that going. I'll put down some bass notes. All right. There's that bass track. Let's get that cropped. By the way, to get in and out of automation mode, I'm just hitting A on my keyboard here, which is very useful. Let's take a listen to this so far. Okay, cool. This is our clip view right here. I just got that by double clicking here. And it looks like some of these notes I hit harder than others. These are the velocity markers. And it also looks like I played just a tad early before we started recording. That's why that first chord wasn't playing. Yeah, so that's coming up now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to click here, Command A, drag this all the way to the top, and then back to a consistent value of around, what is that, 86. So these are the velocity markings of the keys. So that's just how hard you're hitting the keys. So let's take a listen to that now. Cool. Let's add some double time drums here. Awesome. And finally, let's actually solo over this. I think I'm feeling some piano. And rather than mess with this track, I'm just going to add a new piano track. So the way we do that, we can right-click here, insert MIDI track. I have a plugin that I really like called Analog Lab that has some really nice piano sounds. So I'm going to pull that up. And user, I have a couple that I like. Yeah. All right, let's get this solo recorded. All right, there's that. And then to sort of finish out this start to our song, it'd be cool to call back to a previous section. So right here, let's go back to our Oh wait, that was a time signature change, oops. Right here, I'll just click up at the top. We'll click back to the B section. Then we can simply take this material that we recorded right here, shift click, can copy that over, and maybe to end this little demo out, we can automate a fade out here. So I'll go down to the master track, we'll hit that volume, and we'll have this just fade out over the course of those last 8 bars. One really cool thing that Ableton has are built-in automation curves. So if I go to this automation right here and I hold the Option key, you can see that little curve comes up, and that just makes it a little bit more interesting. Instead of a linear fade, it'll fade more slowly at first, and then it will drop off increasingly however you set the curve. So now we've got a little song here that we've built together. Let's take a listen to how it sounds. All right. There it is. So obviously some of those transitions could be ironed out a little bit better, but for 30 minutes of work, not too shabby. Real quick, let's talk about a couple of the musical things here, namely just the chord progressions. One thing arrangement-wise we should do too, as well as when we go back to the B section, we should get this volume back up to where it was before at 0 dB. So we'll do a little fade in there. All right. Cool. We'll hit A to get back out of that. Great. In this first section here, let's talk about the chords. Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is pretty straightforward. We're sort of in the key of D. Oh, we need to turn off that filter. Whoops. There we go. Let's go down an octave. So we start on this D major chord. Then we're headed to a C sharp dominant chord. Probably had a different voicing. Throw the flat 9 in there if you want. Over to the F sharp minor. And then from there, we're planing down just by half steps. So F sharp minor, F minor, and then E minor. Now, I like these voicings, by the way. Those are nice. This starts at 2-5-1, which is a common progression in jazz harmony. So E is acting as the 2 right now. There's that root. That's going to go up to the 5, which will be an A7, maybe an A13. And then resolving back to that chord that we started on, which was a D major. And then at the end of this loop, we went to a D minor. So something like this. So that's how we got that. A couple topics if you're interested in learning more about harmony, just things to practice. Definitely all your diatonic chords. So in the key of D here, we've got D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A major or dominant, B minor, C sharp half diminished, and then back to D. So getting really comfortable with those is really good, and you can learn how to move around. A lot of pop songs, of course, are built on sort of progressions that only use chords that are in the major scale, which is why it's nice to mix it up with some of these secondary dominant chords, which is another topic you should look up. Basically what a secondary dominant is in the key of D, our dominant chord would be A. So that's what we call a 1-5-1 relationship. Now, F sharp minor is also one of the chords that we had, which happens to also be in the key of D. And what a secondary dominant is we just went to the 5 of F sharp minor. So that's that C sharp chord, which was the second chord. So we had our D major, and then C sharp dominant, and that's the 5 of F sharp minor. So you can have a secondary dominant to any of the chords basically in the major scale. So I'll show you what those sound like right now. In D major, if we wanted to go to the 2, it would be a B major, and that could take us back to a 2-5-1. Could do a 5 of 3, which is what we just did to that F sharp. We could do a 5 of 4, which is interesting because that's actually just D major. That's nice. A 5 of 5. That's nice. 5 of 6 is a really great one too. That's nice. You wouldn't see a 5 of 7 too often, but it definitely can happen. So just knowing your way around all those chords and some tips and tricks like the secondary dominants and when we're shifting chords of the same quality when we go to that F sharp minor. We call that planing, which is also happening here on that on this part of the song. That's just minor chords as well, planing up. And I'm thinking about the melody there, so for the melody of that part I'm hearing, what is it? Yeah. Ba-da-da-da. And for that F natural, I chose to harmonize that with a F sharp major 7, sharp 11. And then the second time it goes through the progression. Oh, sorry, that's right here. We sort of subvert expectations by going not to F, but to E. So I just made that an F sharp minor 7. So that progression is D minor, E flat minor, E minor, F sharp, Lydian, and then same thing, except we go to F sharp minor, and then we do a 2-5 there as well, and then back to D instead of E, which is interesting. So guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you had a good time here. I had a lot of fun making this song with you virtually. Hopefully this was helpful to you, just learning about the ins and outs of Ableton, learning about session view and arrangement view, learning about the chain selector and consolidating things to make them more manageable, getting your controllers to talk to Ableton, as well as some of the musical things, harmony, and all that good stuff. So, of course, if you have any questions, I'm on Facebook, Andrew Wray Music. My website is araymusic.com. That's A-W-R-A-Y music.com. Normally, around this time, I'm playing a lot of jazz gigs. Next week, I'll be playing with Madeline Reddle's quintet, which I'm super excited for. That's going to be a great show, so definitely check that out. Otherwise, stay safe out there, and thanks again.